in our nation's service. We typically in Holderness have a service at the honor roll as well. The honor roll is dedicated to all those residents of Holderness who have served in the military. Now, I'd invite you all, if you have the chance, to not only walk by the front and see this honor roll, but also on the back, there's an equal amount of people that are listed. So Holderness has been well represented as far as the military is concerned, and I'm happy to report that I served in the military during the Vietnam era. I know a lot of the folks that are on the honor roll, and I'm proud to be a person who served with them. If we go to the next slide. What's interesting about Memorial Day from my perspective is how it's changed over the years. Now you'll see on both sides of the honor roll a number of pictures. A number of years ago, probably 10 plus years ago, we used to have a parade in Holderness, and we had celebrations associated with Memorial Day, and also visits to the cemetery, and also a wreath was dedicated to those who have perished from as far as the naval services are concerned at the lake. And over the years, since the 60s, the celebration in not just Holderness, but other towns as well, has slowly, I won't say diminished, but it's not as large a celebration as it typically was back in the 60s. So we celebrate both in Holderness, as I said, the Memorial Day and the honor roll. And what I'd like to talk with you about a little bit today is another type of memorial that we'll soon be adding as a tribute to our military folks that have served. So we go to the next slide, please. The Military Order of the Purple Heart is the oldest, medal that's awarded to all branches of the military, men and women, that is still in service and has still been being utilized as a medal since it was introduced in 1782. The purpose of that is if we go to the next slide, please. The origin can be traced back to 1782, as I said earlier, and you'll notice George Washington on the medal. The first medal was presented by him in 1782, and it is presented to military folks who have been injured or killed in action in service to our country. If we go to the next slide. What's, I say, interesting but sad at the same time is that to date, since its introduction, the first year there were 2 medals given, and now we have 1.8 million Purple Hearts that have been awarded in the United States to our US troops. And a couple of statistics for you. And again, these are folks that have either been injured or died while in service. In World War II, there were 137,000 medals that were distributed for folks wounded or died during the war. During the Vietnam era, 200,000 Purple Hearts were awarded. During the Persian Gulf, Iran and Iraq, an additional 50,000. In total, 1.6 million Purple Hearts have been awarded since the Purple Heart was introduced, as I said earlier, in 1782. It's really difficult to fathom. What we don't know at this point is if you look at all the names on the honor roll, I'm sure a number of those folks received Purple Hearts as well. So if we move to the next slide, please. What I learned a few years ago is that a program began in 1992 called the Purple Heart Trail. And the Purple Heart Trail actually put signage on roads and bridges and the like in different towns and on federal highways to bring attention to folks about the Purple Heart and the service that our veterans have given to our country. Really to make the public more aware of the medal and also the sacrifice that goes with that. Today, there are, again, looking at my notes, there are 200 locations in 45 states. And if you look at the second paragraph on this slide, you'll see the Purple Heart locations in the state of New Hampshire. And there are currently 6 or 7 additional ones that are being added this year. If you go to the next slide, please. So there's one very close to us, less than 10 miles away. There's a Purple Heart Trail sign. We're not going to look for a show of hands, obviously, but it'd be interesting if you give it a little bit of thought. Think whether you've seen this sign or not. I'll give you a second to look at it. And then we'll go to the next slide. It's located, go to the next slide, please. It's located in Center Harbor between Route 25, between Holderness and Meredith. And for those that are kind of familiar with other landmarks, the Real Green Lawn Service is located across the street from that. So we're going to move to the next slide here in a second. Thank you. My father served in World War II, was wounded twice, and received the Purple Heart and the Oak Leaf Cluster, the Oak Leaf Cluster being the equivalent of a second Purple Heart. And in order to honor him and to place a sign on the highway, or as in this case, on the library lawn here, there's a process that you must go through, beginning with the local town, obviously, the select board, and then the state needs to approve the location, and there's also the military order of the Purple Heart validates the fact that the individual did receive the Purple Heart and was wounded in when that was located. And then finally, there's a process associated with building or making the sign, which is made in the state prison here in New Hampshire, down in Concord, using a standard format that they have. So you'll see this type of sign around the state in different locations. We'll go to the next slide, please. So this is a picture of my dad, who died in 1991 with my mother, who passed away in February of 2011. Dad served in the service from 1943 through 1945. He was in the 34th Infantry Division, saw service in North Africa, Anzio Beachhead, and the Battle of Cassino, where he was wounded twice, which is why the medal was awarded to him. So that's a really brief overview as far as the sign is concerned. We have the sign now. We're going to install it on the library lawn, close to the honor roll, next to Route 113, which is a road that Dad traveled most every day out to check the mail or to have a cup of coffee with friends here in Holderness. So with that, any questions that folks have about the process or how the three things are tied together, we're open for questions.
Weymouth about the Purple Heart, and it's a historical one. Do you know whether Union and Confederate soldiers received this medal during that conflict?
My understanding was they were Union soldiers, but I'd have to verify that.
Okay, thank you.
Earl, it's Kathy. I have a quick question too. At our friends meeting last month, people asked how to recognize people on that wall who have received Purple Hearts. And we were talking about, I think I actually said this to you before, what do we need to do to either have permission from the town or the select board to honor those people? Maybe they're not gonna be honored on a Purple Heart sign, but they'd be honored on our remembrance wall.
Right. Well, the only suggestion I could make is that the families of those individuals could go through the process of being approved by the Purple Heart organization. I have some information on that. Perhaps we can get together at some point and we can talk about the process and how it's a bit cumbersome right now because of the COVID situation as far as getting the information. It takes a bit of time, but there's I learned the hard way. There's a process to go through and a number of contacts, and you can validate that information.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. I'd look forward to that.
Okay.
Earl, I have a question. As it relates to sort of the experience of veterans, I often believe that sort of learning who they are, like as the person. Can you speak a little bit about your father and his experiences? I know you had a slide about him, but sort of more of who he was. You know, any memories from his service?
What? I can't see the audience, but I'm sure there are folks here that knew my dad. He moved to Holderness in 1947. Actually started as running driving a milk truck from the Burleigh Farm, delivering around the lake and so on, and then worked on the Burleigh Farm in a number of positions for up until he retired. What's interesting about, say interesting, but he instilled in our family the value associated with serving your country. He was involved with the Memorial Day parades here. I have some other pictures of him in the parade in different capacities, with the Legion, for example, with the firing. At the cemetery, also the being one of the grand marshals of the parade when it was quite a big thing here in Holderness. He was a scout leader, as was my mother in town. Pretty well known from around the lake and from the town of Holderness as a whole. Stories. There's funny one. There's funny ones and family stories that we could talk about, but one of the ones that I recently was talking with a fellow about, it has to do with Route 113. If folks are traveling on 113 towards Rocky Wall, you get to a point where you go by the Burleigh Farm. There's a boathouse there that belongs to the Webster's family. On the right-hand side, it has a slide on the top of it. A lot of folks know about that. Well, Dad and a couple of his friends one night decided in the wintertime that they could go up to where the big house is up on the hill with the toboggan, and jump on the toboggan. There's 3 of them. Go down the hill, hit the snowbank from the snowplow where the snowplow had been, and fly over the hill, over the Route 113, and actually land on the lake. And in reality, what happened is they made their flight down the hill pretty well. Took flight going over 113, but since none of them were actual engineers by trade, they went straight into the snowbank on the other side. So it was kind of some interesting thing to see. There was also a lot of competition along Run 13 back in those days as to who made, what organization, what farm made the most maple syrup. And again, as a prankster, one night he went over and tapped all of the telephone poles leading into Rocky Wall, just to give Paul Needham a hard time as far as where he was hanging his sap buckets. So I'm sure there are other people online here now that have other stories of him, but he was very involved with the town and very, very dedicated to Veterans Affairs, American Legion International, and so on. So I really appreciate the fact that this town has allowed me to erect a sign in his memory and in memory of all the others that have received a Purple Heart in defense of our country.
Thank you for that. If you do have any questions, feel free to unmute and speak.
Hey, I have a question.
Hi, Laurie.
Earl, how you doing? Hey, the question relative to recognition of veterans' service and sacrifice. We have a day, Memorial Day, where we recognize all people who died in all the wars. We also have a flag, the POW MIA flag, that is, I think, the 3rd ranking flag in the hierarchy of flags everywhere. And my understanding is it's the decision of individual property management, like the postmaster of Holderness or the head librarian, of where that flag flies. What do you think about that flag? I kind of I was violently in favor of it in 1979, 1980, 1985, 1980, and anymore I kind of scratch my head and saying, how long are we going to do this? The number of POWs, American servicemen held in captivity, is 0. Number of missing in action who would be, under 80 is like 2 or something like that. What do you think?
I think it's symbolic of folks in the Gulf Wars as well that were maybe captured at one point but not held as prisoners of war. So maybe the design needs to change a bit. What's bothersome for me is that we seem to lose, as time goes on, history is kind of at a loss, if you will, as far as what people have sacrificed for the freedoms that we have here today. So I'm not opposed to those types of things, but maybe a design change to actually represent folks that have been captured in other ways that are not presently. That came out that flag came out after in the Vietnam era. But folks that have been captured, not necessarily POWs, but in the wars since then, in the battles that we've had since then. So I'm not opposed to it, bottom line, but maybe the design needs to be somewhat different.
Thank you.
I've got to ask you folks a question. This is interesting to me. How many people are on here now?
I think
Just curious.
We have at least 16 accounts, but it looks like there are, a number of couples and folks like
Yeah,
that.
okay.
Say roughly 20.
20, good, okay. So, well, I can't see you folks, the rest of you. I'm sure there's some that I know, but I can be reached in Center Harbor if you have any questions and want to talk about this, any other details that perhaps we left out. I think the important thing is that we are now adding another sign or symbol, if you will, to the area by the honor roll. And it's important to me that folks understand what it's all about. And this is a way of getting the message out.
I think
Betsy has a question.
Yeah, I hesitate to ask it because I jumped on late. I'm sorry. It was such a beautiful day. I couldn't come inside. I was picking weeds. So I apologize. But I saw the draft of the sign and it said something about the Purple Heart Trail. And I assume that does the Purple Heart Trail go from point A to point B, or is it just a number of isolated signs in different towns all across the country?
The latter.
Okay.
And just to elaborate on that a little bit, Betsy, there's also towns that have signs, they declare themselves a Purple Heart town, as opposed to the trail. The trail is more associated more personally with, for example, in my dad's case, he traveled 113 all the time. So that section of road, if you will. And I'm not sure when you joined, but I have a slide that shows the different towns and locations in New Hampshire that have those signs. There's one on the way to, if you're driving from Meredith back towards Holderness on Route 25, there's one on the right-hand side there. And so it's more of a stretch of road that is associated with that individual.
That's great. That's, I knew that your dad had association with True Farm up the way. And I also noticed that Adam's been recording this. So once he sends out that recording, I will listen to the whole thing, Earl, and I'll get my facts straight. If I have any other questions, then I can ask you.
Okay, that's great. Good to see you.
Earl, I have one final question. In the absence of a Memorial Day parade and celebration in person, how might we observe Memorial Day as individuals?
Well, one of the things that I will do, and I've already done it a couple of times. One is looking for the location for the sign, but just spending a quiet moment walking by the honor roll or standing by the honor roll, makes an impression on me, and I think it would be anyone. And the other thing that's interesting about this honor roll, I would bet that not many people know that there is almost an equal amount of names that you see on the honor roll, on the back of the honor roll as well. If you walk around the back side, you'll see other conflicts. People from Holderness have served. And you think of the size of Holderness, and you think of that monument having that many names on both sides, that really makes an impression on us as citizens.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? All right. Well, Earl, on behalf of the library, I thoroughly enjoyed your talk and appreciate not only your service and your father's service, but what you have been able to do to honor that service. So thank you very, very much.
Thanks.
Thank you, Earl.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Earl.
Good going.
Thanks,
Right.
Earl.
Semper Fi.
Who's that fellow?
That Beeson, his name's Beeson.
There you go.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
everybody.
everybody. Video will eventually be up on YouTube and then eventually on the library's website.